welcome to Ideagen TV, live from Washington, D.C. today, here with Marcus Smith from the Circle of M. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Dr. Rawle Andrews, American Psychiatric Association Foundation. Such a pleasure to be with you both here today. It's an incredible moment to have a very serious discussion about your backgrounds and your journeys. And I'd like to launch right in, Marcus, by asking you, what brought you on this journey?
Yeah, so, first off, Marcus Smith, second year, 6-year NFL veteran, played with the Eagles, Seahawks, Commanders. Commanders were my last team. That's why I'm here in DC, obviously. But what brought me on this journey was going through a suicide attempt, right? Just getting down to the nitty gritty of it. This is why I'm in this space when we talk about mental health, playing the game that I love, right? Former first round draft pick, but everything doesn't look all that great on the inside as it looks on the outside. And so for me, going through that process, going through having to deal with family, having to deal with just the stresses of playing the game and wanting to appease the fans, wanting to appease the coaches, having to go through all that is what led to a suicide attempt when I was in Seattle. And so Pete Carroll was a person that kind of threw me that lifeline. I was able to go to him and just tell him that I needed help, right? And sometimes I just feel like a lot of us, whether in your workforce, whatever that you're doing, we're afraid to ask for help. And that was the moment that I was vulnerable enough to ask for help. And so that's how I got into the space. And that's why I work the way that I do, so we can all, have a safe place and be vulnerable to ask for help.
Well, it's incredible to see and to hear and to sort of process what you just said. It's incredibly brave to help others, to come out and be able to share and articulate such a personal journey. And the fact that you've turned that now into something with the Circle of M that's helping so many others across the world. I mean, it gives you a chill to think about what you're doing. It's incredible, Marcus. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to turn here to Dr. Andrews, who's leading up the American Psychiatric Association Foundation. You know a little bit about mental health through your work with mentalhealthcareworks.org and everything else that you're doing. What aren't you doing in this space?
Well, thank you, George. And that Doctor of Laws is going a long way today. But Rawle Andrews, proud to be the executive director of the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, although it is a new year, and I like to think that these 12 months of January are soon going to be over. But our mission remains unchanged despite a new year and despite a new administration. We are working to help improve the mental health and well-being of individuals and communities where they live, learn, work, worship, and play. And we use a three-legged stool in order to hold up that platform of those 5 pillars. And that is the foundation as a thought leader. That is the foundation as a convener. And that is the foundation as a micro-philanthropist, so that while we may not be able to underwrite your entire program, by putting in largely unrestricted seed money through our grants and awards, we're helping to fuel the ground game, or in some instances, the air game, so that everybody ultimately will understand there is no health without mental health.
You've said it before, and I hear you, and you're helping so many people across the world as well. And so what are some of the key initiatives of the American Psychiatric Association Foundation? What is it that you look to say, hey, this is why I'm so excited to wake up today?
Well, one of the things we did is we're in the second year of a strategic plan. Back in 2021, when I joined the foundation, our strategic plan had expired. And so we went through a pretty rigorous process to build a platform. And what emerged from our strategic plan was we needed a public health literacy and awareness and action campaign. And I credit one of your other speakers today, because I learned a lot about what the value of cause marketing and public health campaigns can do from Bill Novella. When I was one of his charges at AARP some time ago. And so we created a campaign called Mental Healthcare Works. And one of the things it does above the line is to shine a brighter light through the power of stories, real conditions, real people, real signs and symptoms of where mental health care works. But what it also does is shine an even brighter light on where mental health care doesn't work. And we know no matter how high awareness is about mental health, George, there's still an access problem. There's still a workforce shortage problem where we actually have doctors who are leaving the practice of medicine to go teach algebra. Doesn't mean we don't need algebra teachers, but we need doctors, we need nurses, we need other allied health professionals to make the system work. But in every one of those programs, one of our signature programs is our Notice Talk Act at School program. We are now, because of a grant, able to teach any staff and faculty of any K-12 school in the country and the territories our free Notice Talk Act platform. And the nice thing about that platform is going to tell you how to notice signs and symptoms, stop, drop, and roll. It's not going to make you a doctor, but you'll understand the stop, drop, and roll of mental health. It's going to make you courageous conversation in talk versus difficult conversations. And then when it comes to action, what are some immediate, some intermediate, and some long-term tools, tips, and resources where people can get the help? So what I encourage all your viewers to do, particularly those who are in the United States, go to our website, apaf.org, and you'll see all of our platforms and our pillars, but you'll be able to get some information on Notice Talk Act because your tax dollars have already paid for us to deliver that program to your children and your grandchildren. Why would you walk away from something that's already funded?
Right. Right. And that's profound. It's so incredible to hear. Again, Dr. Andrews, your incredible leadership, leading the way at APAF, as we like to say. And so, Marcus, number one draft pick, you shared with us your journey. What is it now that's inspiring you to move forward? What is it like? You've played for so many NFL teams, you've achieved so much success, but now you've turned to, hey, I want to help humanity. What's next for you? What's happening?
Yeah, I think first off, the kids, right? I have a 3-year-old and I have a 6-year-old, and I started to realize that it started off when I was younger, my mental health issues. So with the Circle of M Incorporated, when I started it back in 2020, I started to realize that it wasn't so much of me being an adult. I had to peel back a lot of layers, right? I had to kind of go to therapy. I had to get medication. I had to do all these things in order to understand what my purpose was, right? I had to find out who the real Marcus Smith was, right? And so I did that through therapy and things of that nature. And so we start off with the youth. We have partnered with Maryland Park and Planning to create a mental health recreational program in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, to kind of just real basic level understanding of what mental health is, helping them understand what APAF is, right? Getting their parents really acclimated to what resources are out there at a young age, like from 8 to 18. And so that way they understand, like, okay, people that look like me, oh, okay, they go get help. They go to these foundations. They do all of these things in order to get the help that they need. And then after that, I look at my brothers, right, from the NFL, or I look at my brothers and sisters from all athletes across the nation, right? They need some type of help. So we partner with facilities that help them get into treatment. One is Refine Recovery, which is out in California. Then another one is in it's right in Colorado. I keep always mess up that part, but it's right in Colorado, and a lot of athletes go to these facilities to get the treatment that they need. So we kind of just serve as a bridge, right? I am, not a therapist. I am not a clinician, but I think there is a need for people right in the middle to kind of like push them into the right realms that they need to go.
That's right. That's right. And what strikes me at this moment in listening to your description is your leadership. I mean, standing out as a role model to be able to take my next question, which is stigma, clearly you're helping to debunk the stigma around mental health. You're having a problem, your colleagues in the NFL, people across the world, anyone that will watch this interview will say, wow, maybe I can relate to Marcus Smith II. I can get assistance and help without having the stigma that you talk about, destigmatizing access to mental health. So maybe I'll turn to Rawle for your perspective on this, because it's extremely important.
So one of the things we did in Mental Health Care Works is we stopped using the term stigma because it was creating additional stigmas. Now, once upon a time, wearing glasses was stigmatized. You were four eyes. Now, the eyewear frame business is a multi-billion-dollar business. People don't even need corrective lenses, but they got to have the frames. They got away from it. Diabetes. Is anybody having more fun than somebody with type 2 diabetes? Anywhere the commercials are fun. Once upon a time having diabetes was stigma. So the reality of it is we have to get beyond stigma. We can't be Pollyannish. So one of the things we did when I got over and we put our strategic plan, said mental health is a healthcare issue just like physical health. We need to hire a doctor. So we went over to Shepherd Pratt and we recruited one of the best rising stars they had, Dr. Vedrina Hodgic, who was working the mean streets of Baltimore, and said, hey, you need to come to administration in Washington to make sure we have medical leadership. Because if I were to, heaven forbid, walk out of here and trip and break my ankle, everybody would rush to my aid. And they would say, oh, let's get you to urgent care emergency room. If I come to you and say, oh, George, I'm feeling a little depressed today after what happened yesterday, and you might have some empathy for me, but you might be shying away like, oh, that's too much for me to bear. I'm dealing with my own invisible wounds, right? So what is stigma? Fear. What is stigma? Shame. What is stigma? Retaliation, discrimination. All of those things are what stigma is. But one of the reasons why we really appreciate the work that Marcus is doing, and Marcus and I had an opportunity in December to work on a forum together with the NFL Washington Commanders. If the hardest of the hard, who've done the hardest things, can show some vulnerability, can show some humanity, and say, you know what? I'm not a human doer. I'm not a machine on the gridiron. I'm a human being. And I have physical pain and I have mental pain. And sometimes one contradicts the other, right? So your mind ultimately is going to tell you what your body feels. So that's why we try to bring out some of our elite entertainers and athletes, because if they're willing to come forward, then what everyday people like Rawle might say is, well, if Marcus could say he needs help, who am I to think that I couldn't get help? And so one of the things we're also going to do, led by our development team, Angela Jones, Vic Borden, and some others, we're going to be in New Orleans and Baton Rouge the entirety of Super Bowl week. And we've been invited for the first time to join the Brain Health Summit of Lee Steinberg, the super agent, among other activations. And we'll spend some time at some high schools and some middle schools. We'll spend some time next week hanging around LSU and Southern University in Baton Rouge. But really, that Steinberg event is going to be the moonshot that says, you know what, no health without mental health. And if you're ready to make this moment turn into a movement, come join us and let's figure out how we can do some more good together.
Well, and two things come to mind with this is that one person can change the world. There's no doubt. Marcus, you're doing that, as you are, Rawle. And two, this movement that you've created is all about showing others that you can get help. You don't talk about stigma. And your story is the example of that, Marcus. And so as we look further, we look at cross-sector collaboration. And so you're both familiar with this because that's what you're doing. Why is it so important to have and to engage across sectors on what you may refer to, for example, as a healthcare issue or an educational issue? Why is it so important?
We cannot alone do everything, but together we can do anything. And the reality of it is it all starts with trust. And the reason why you have to collaborate, even when it's hard to do, is because some of the quadrants and industry lines where we need to connect, we don't have credibility. I'm not an elite athlete. I didn't play in the NFL. I can't walk into those rooms and open doors the way Marcus can. Marcus wasn't in law firm boardrooms or he hadn't been in NGO administration. They're happy to meet him, but they don't know who he is, why he's there. We work with Ideagen on and off the summits. We work with the Concerned Citizens Network of Alexandria to kind of go right into the schools. Because in community is where we can make the most difference. And a lot of this is about how does the community feel? What does the community believe they need? And how do they respond? You introduced us, George, to HOSA. And one of the things that was really interesting, I've got my entire school team, our medical education team, is at this global summit. Dr. Hodges is here. Kate Berg, who taught school and did some crisis intervention in schools, is here. She came all the way from Colorado to join this movement. And then our young hotshot superstar, Jerry Thuku, is here. Jerry's teaching Notice Talk Act to school staff and teachers somewhere every week. And here's the distinction, George. Most professional service days for K-12 education, breaking news, it only focuses on the teachers. Our platform focuses on all school staff. So what about the cafeteria worker who notices Rawle, who has a voracious appetite, hadn't been eating all week? Might be a sign or symptom, something's going wrong. The custodian who walks into the restroom and notices an inconsolable child and then tries to back away. Or the example that I give briefly, George, when I was coaching travel basketball, and I've been coaching these guys since they were 7, 8 years old. They get to be about 13, 14, things are going on. And one of my players had failed a quiz. And they're in the layup line, and I hear all the guys giving him the business about he's suicidal over this failed quiz. Now, before Notice Talk Act, I would have just been, sticks and stones, boys will be boys. So I said, you know what? We need to go down here. Remember we said we were going to work on your free throws. So I was able, without embarrassing him, to separate him from the crowd. I said, you guys keep working on your free throws. Layups, we're going to go down here. We're going to do the free throws. And I started talking to him as he was shooting free throws about following through on all our commitments, all our expectations. Then I got the whole team back together and I said, you know what? We can be tough on each other, but we're not the enemy. We're the team. And if we're not together on this, we're not going to achieve our team goals that you all told me you wanted to achieve. And then the thing I would never have done before Notice Talk Act, I wouldn't have told the parents, like, look, go easy on him. He had a tough day. But the reality of it is, I don't want the guilty knowledge of 48 hours from now, something happens. He really was in harm's way. And then didn't anybody see anything? Didn't anybody hear anything? Why didn't everybody do anything? Rawle, you were with him last. Did you see any? Oh, wow. I do remember. How do I tell parents that I heard the F word and I didn't feel like I should or could do anything about it? So you don't know what the bus driver of our kids and our grandkids is dealing with other than what's on CNN every now and again. But they're seeing some things and they're hearing some things, but they're not equipped. Notice Talk Act at school, you got to get to it.
And that's the example of leadership. That's the example of the leadership that can start with an individual, a leader, to help change the world. And that's what you're doing with Notice Talk Act.
We are doing it, but I give credit to that team because they're out on the front line every day. And if I can boost them up, cheer them on, provide them with the resources to do it, that's what my job is to.
So Marcus, you talked a lot about your journey again, and I know faith is a part of it. I know your leadership, the leadership that you developed throughout your career is part of it. How do you bring all these pieces together to be able to affect change?
Well, I kind of tell the kids and I tell, former players, like, you can have faith and a therapist, right? There's nothing wrong with that. If that's something that you subscribe to, that's something that I did. I feel like God gave me 2 lifelines, right? I met my wife, and then I had a relationship with her mom in which it was a great relationship, but those 2 lifelines helped me not commit suicide, right? And so I believe that because of my faith and because those people were in my life, they pushed me to be my very best, and then I was able to go get the help. So faith to me is something that is very important, and it's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So I just truly believe that faith and therapy kind of go hand in hand. And that's that's the way that I teach the kids. And that's the way that, if guys want to come and talk to me and kind of want to know, well, how did I get through that process? It was work that I had to put in, but I also had faith within myself that I can get through those tough moments and that, I could be on the other side, especially now being on these platforms, being able to talk to all of you. So that's what I would say, especially about, faith and just what it looks like to have that in the workforce, in sports, and in everything else that we do.
Well, we speak to global leaders here at Ideagen, leaders and luminaries, we like to say. And I'd like to say that this is leadership defined. These two gentlemen here are changing the world. It's saving lives. It's incredible. I want to thank you both so very much.
Thank you so much.